Hi again. So, I know I said I was working on a couple videos for about a different topic, and I am, but I woke up this morning and I thought about, I was just kind of reflecting as I woke up, and excuse me, um, I was thinking about that idea of what I was talking about last night of fearlessness. And fearlessness is a pretty big topic, and just like everything in this life is often misunderstood. I know personally that I have misunderstood fearlessness in a lot of ways. I I used to think that fearlessness was a sort of like an aggression, a force, something that like needed to be done. But the more I've come to understand fearlessness, the more I've started to realize that fearlessness is anything but that. Fearlessness is gentle. Fearlessness is loving. Fearlessness is sweet and kind and compassionate and open and free. Fearlessness is not a fighting. Fearlessness is the end of fighting. And so, I mean, those words all sound great, but like, how does that make sense? I think a lot of us really have been instilled with this idea that to be fearless means to be strong. And it does. You are strong in your ability to let go and to accept things the way they are. Right. Because if you are going to be fearless, I mentioned before, you need to like see the truth. And seeing the truth is acceptance. It allows you to see your false expectations, the that you have on the world, right? If we're going into a situation and it's not like we expected, then we're gonna some sort of emotion's gonna come up, whether it be confusion or anger or sadness. And essentially, all of those derive from a sense of fear that we don't have control over this or that aspect in our life. And we should also realize when we sit into acceptance, or we can also realize um, that not only do we not have control over a lot of the situations in our life, and that's okay, it's wonderful. It allows for new experiences that we might not have ever come to if we hadn't been accepting. When we're resistant, we miss a lot. But it also teaches us that not only is there little control because the situations in the world often change, but hopefully it can teach us that you also change all the time. And that could be kind of scary. A lot of us not only grasp onto the need to have any given certain situation be any given way, but also this idea that like we are this one person who is just like this and believes these things and cares about these things and doesn't care about these things. And when we wake up and we don't feel that same feeling, we feel maybe confused or lost or even bored, apathetic. It could almost seem like all those, all that meaning, all that connection that we had so recently, it was just not real. And it's not that it's not real, it's that those things can change. A big way that a lot of people find meaning, I know one of the ways that I found real meaning in my life is to connect with the divine. I had mentioned that in the last video as well. And and that in itself is meaning. But I heard this quote about, they were talking about the divine, and so if we're looking at it from the divine as a sense of meaning in our life, a greater sense of meaning. What was said about the divine was that it is not known and can never be known, but it is also not unknown and it is more than known as well. And that really is as all the things you could say about a sort of experience, all the things you could say about a divine reality are just pointers, right? And they're pointing to a place that can't be seen, but is everywhere. And so I think I'm missing a link that I feel is needs to be expressed is that there is our meaning, there are our expectations too in our meaning, but there's also like a greater meaning. There's a greater force at work, obviously, and we're clearly a part of it. And it's okay to not understand, right? Sometimes, like, we have to accept that sometimes is our ignorance or our lack of understanding to gain a path towards real understanding. But there's a greater meaning that we can surrender our meaning to. We can set our meaning, we can see our future, and then when we surrender that to the greater meaning, which requires an amount of faith. This doesn't have to be faith again in like a specific deity, like because this can be a completely non-dual concept, whether that be a not like like a permanent reality we can't experience, or this being the permanent reality itself. We can have faith that if we offer this out, when it returns, we'll be able to see the things that are holding us back, our areas where we don't have enough faith in our ability to do this or in another person's ability to meet us. And we can accept those things. When you start to see the world in a way that's similar, in a way that is expressing what I'm trying to express, but for you, from your distinct perspective, we start to be in allowance of accepting whatever comes with fearlessness, with this gentleness, with this joy, even, because when we are met with unexpected opportunities, instead of reacting with fear, we start seeing that door. We start seeing opportunities open for us in every single moment. And this might not have gone the way I thought it would. It's something we might say to ourselves, but let's do it. And those are powerful moments. Those are incredible paths to just keep following down. I think, it even comes into this idea of like luck. A lot of people are like, oh, whoa, they're so lucky. Or, oh, why am I so unlucky? I think the lucky people are just the people who are able to see those opportunities that lay directly in front of them. When you stop seeking, grasping after positive experiences and stop running away from negative ones, you start to come to this place where everything equalizes. And in the good situations, you see a chance to be distracted from living the life that you are living. And in the bad experiences, you see, like I said, that doorway. It all starts to become more and more one thing. You stop worrying about like being perfect. You stop worrying about this idea about what perfection is when you can already be perfect. And then fearlessness, when you can stop worrying about these things, when you can stop grasping after things and senses of self and the truth that without being able to see your limitations, then fearlessness just kind of rises naturally. It just unfolds out of this place of acceptance. And freedom does too. You start to see fearlessness in more and more ways as equivalent to freedom. Not only do good and bad situations start to equalize, but all of life does in this profound way where this deeper meaning that you give to whatever it is, to this the greater meaning, the greater um, faith, that that even equalizes with all things. And I don't I it feels like being attuned. Shiva, I talked about him yesterday. I read a prayer about one of his forms. He plays the damaru. It's this little drum with two sides, and it's spun back and forth, and both sides are hit. The drumming of the damaru makes me think of those moments where we're given an opportunity, where something happens unexpectedly, whether it be inside of ourselves or outside of ourselves, and we feel this like shock, like, and it's like, oh, like what was that? And that what was that shock, that being pulled out of the moment, rather back into the moment, changes our perspective immediately. And at every single one of those points, there's the opportunity to take this into ourselves to lift us up, or to take this into ourselves and bring us down. Both are equivalent, but you start to live in a way where everything lifts you up, expands, and grows. Or when it does bring you down, then you can feel restful and well. Yeah. You know, fearlessness is a huge topic for me, and something that I've like dealt with back and forth for a long time. And, fear of the world, and fear of myself, and fear of situations, and fear of this and that, all these external things. And I'm so happy to have learned a lot more of it, because as I continue down my personal journey, the world becomes the stories I tell in the world to myself about the world become more and more subtle, more and more rarefied. And I've been meeting with like fears that feel ancestral and human and cosmic, that sit in all of our cells, in our DNA. And those fears are powerful. The level of wound that we share together, if we are to face that, we have to let go of any preconception about what is good for us or bad for us, to find a real sort of healing, a healing on a level that hopefully like spreads. It's like vibratory. As we like heal our bodies, it feels like we're healing the great body, this amazing and wonderful cosmos, this beautiful, fantastic world. Yeah, I just thought it was appropriate to share that a little bit about fearlessness, because there's just such I realize there's such an instinct, or an ingraining in us to hear fearlessness and be like, yeah, this whole like you essentially, like, right, that's the motion, you grab onto it. It's like, no. Fearlessness is like, if it's to be expressed in body motions. And yeah, so I hope that is clear, and sending my love.